We are fortunate to have Kuda with us so that at least our discussion is not theoretical. He's just there to actually give us a true testimony of what it is really in terms of the opportunities that lie within the sector. So without wasting much of your time, Kuda, it's a pleasure to have been speaking to you backstage. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure being here. I'm usually playing with cattle and looking at my crops and praying for them to grow. So, it's a good thing that, you actually made me change and wear something nice and shave, because I was looking like a bear just before I came here. So thanks for inviting me.
All right, so let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about your journey, about yourself. So who's Kuda, and how did you end up on this stage today? So give us a little bit about your journey, the kind of activities you're doing, and then maybe we can kickstart our conversation from there.
Basically, I'm 35 years old now, getting a bit of gray hairs, but my passion for farming started way back in the days when my father bought the farm, probably 1992. So I was probably the age of, I think it was at 4, not 4, probably 6,
grade
7?
4?
Grade 4, yeah, grade 4. That's when my father bought the farm. So that's where the passion came from. We used to just go to the farm by force. He never used to let us drive any tractors or do anything like that, any fun stuff on the farm. But yeah, we were naughty, and we used to just go and jump on the tractors, jump on the bikes, and go off. After that, fast forward into my education. I actually went to Watershed College, which is an agricultural-based college. I did my O-levels. When I got to my O-levels, there was 2 choices, whether to go to A-level or to do a diploma in agriculture. And at that point, that's when I decided, look, let me take this on as a career and actually do my diploma. So at the age of 16, I decided, look, let me get into agriculture. One of the main reasons was I used to see some of the white guys that were farming at that period in time. We used to mess around in class after time, and then, come with their vehicles, go on holiday, all sorts of stuff. And, they used to enjoy life. And they lived on farms, and all their stories were things that I was like, wow, these guys, they're enjoying themselves. So I did my diploma. It took me 2 years. Then from there, I moved on to study for my degree. I went to Hartbury College, which is in the UK. Finished in 2003 is when I graduated with my degree in agriculture and land management. I worked for a dairy company. I think it was the second biggest dairy company in the UK for another 2 years. And then I decided, look, it's time. I'm tired of the cold country. It's time for me to come back to Zimbabwe. So I duly packed my stuff and I came back down. When I got back here, I think I got the baptism of fire, because my dad was like, look, there's no manager. We're not doing any managers or anything like that. You went to study your degree, and he backed me from get-go. So I started running the farm, and we had a contract which I went in and organized with a company called Northern Tobacco. And on my first review, the guy who came in, he wrote me a review saying, this farm will never be a success. This guy is never on the farm. He doesn't know where he's going from left to right, and that sort of thing. And I kept that letter, and I still have it up until today. And every time I see this guy, I always tell him, look, you are one of the main reasons why I ended up focusing on actually doing farming. So now, at the stage that I'm at, I've won the national competition for the Confederation of Young Farmers Club twice. Thank you. And with regards to hectares, so I'm going to just throw out a couple of numbers for you. Hectares-wise, this season for maize, I did 250 hectares of maize. For tobacco, I did 110. For wheat, at this period of time, I'm doing 80 hectares, mainly due to the fact that I don't have too much water on the farm, and I need to balance it out. Right. Greenhouses, I've got 2 hectares of greenhouse tomato. I also do chickens on a 6-week basis, or turnaround period is about 8 weeks. So every 8 weeks, I'm doing 20,000. We've got cattle, 1,000 head of cattle, which I manage as well. And yeah, well, there's quite a number of things that I can do, and say piggery, fish. So it's quite substantial, and all of it complements itself.
Right. So that's very interesting. But I think at the same time, a lot of us do not understand 250 hectares or how big that is. So we will come back to that shortly. We really want you to put it into perspective for us by giving us some of the numbers in terms of the revenue, the potential of the industry that you're in. But before we get to that, I want to take you back a little bit and say, can you demystify farming for us? Because I guess a lot of other people, when they hear farming, they think maize, they think a plow and a cattle, they think tractors. But demystify farming for us as an industry, so that we can really get to understand and grasp the opportunities that lie within the entire spectrum of farming. So if you say farming, am I only doing maize? What else can be done within the confines of the word farming?
Farming is very broad. There's the cropping side. There's obviously the horticulture. You can keep livestock. You can even do, when they say agribusiness, you can even go into supplying equipment in agriculture. You can, there's various things that are associated with farming, which then downstream, then add on. That's when your accountants start coming in and your lawyers, but everything comes from the production end, which is where farming starts. So you, as the primary producer of anything, you can grow trees, you can keep bees, you can fish. I think the list is endless with regards to what you can actually do in farming. So what it is, when you actually start a farming project, is to define what exactly you want to do. That is under the farming bracket, and then go for that. So farming is very broad. It can be machinery-wise, can be the business side of farming, can be the practical side of farming. So there are many elements that can be brought in. The banking side of it, agribusiness, where you can become a banker on the agriculture side of things. So there's a lot to it. Quite a number of things that I can say, but yeah, not of it. But well, I'm sure as we go down, we can explain more.
Okay, interesting. You mentioned that you did a diploma in farming at the age of 16. Where did you do this diploma, and is this qualification or training available, across the country? Because this is actually my first time to understand that you can actually do a diploma in education at the age of 16.
The college I went to was Watershed College, so they've got an agricultural diploma course that they do. There are also other colleges, like 4B, that do that. I think we've got Gwebi as well, that also do those sort of things. And quite a number of them that are scattered around the country. I think if you go on Google and try look up which colleges you can go to, you can find an array of them that you can choose from.
Okay. So did you go to Watershed College by virtue that you went there for high school, or somebody from the audience, if they decide they want to get into agriculture, get training, they just apply to Watershed for this kind of training?
I'm not really sure what Watershed is actually doing with regards to how they enroll students, but it's something that can be easily found out to see how you can go down the career path of farming. But back when we were in high school, we actually did Form 1 to Form 4, and then from Form 4, that's when you could choose to do either A-level or the agricultural diploma course.
Interesting. All right, Kuda, that's very interesting. I think we're learning quite a lot from this discussion. I want to take you back to, how you started. You had interest in school, but then how did you then start? Apart from the education, you come back, now there's a piece of land. What did you start with? How did you start? And, how big was it? And now how it has grown over the years?
When I first came back to the farm, we didn't have any technology. Most of the workers, when we were doing irrigation, we used to change pipes. Guys used to lift up pipes. Some guys never used to lift up pipes, so you get to a scenario where you get into the field and you're saying change the pipe from there to there, and it's at night, and the guys would literally fall asleep, wake up around 4 knowing that Basa is cleaning now, and then move the pipe where it's supposed to go. So the first thing I said to myself was, look, I can't function like this. I need to get some technology onto the farm. That's when I started, applying to get either a loan to put up a center pivot. And then that's when I also then got into contract farming, because they were actually funding that particular center pivot. So those are the main things that I brought onto the farm, which is the technology side of things, from the education. I tried to make it as easy as possible. My computer, I can see, okay, my pivot is moving, it's pouring so much water, it's doing this, I can switch it on at that time, switch it off at that time. So the technology side for me was one of the major things that made life a lot easier. It meant that I didn't have to wake up in the morning at odd hours and find my crops not watered correctly. So that helped quite a lot.
Interesting. So the impact of technology on your farming activities can never be denied or ever emphasized, because it really made life a little bit more easier for you to manage and a bit more predictable. But what did you start with? Was it crops, maize, tobacco, and how big did you start? Because I'm looking at somebody who's in the audience who says, okay, I see there's potential in the space, but where do I start? What would you recommend to be, the place? So take us through your journey on how you started and how you have grown to be a multi-award winning young farmer who's coming up and making some sustainable impact in Zimbabwe.
On the current farm that we're on, it'll be very difficult to show you, to actually explain that. But what I can explain to you is, about 2-3 years ago, I actually started expanding my operations by going out and leasing other farms. So what I would actually do is, because the funding wasn't there, it wasn't available. So I'll go find a piece of land. I remember at the time it was a 20-hectare piece of land where, I literally couldn't get any funding for it. But the first thing I knew, if you're starting off, is that piece of land that you've got doesn't change despite what you do. All you can do is either make it worse or make it better. So I went and I got a map done of my 20-hectare plot, and I said, okay, the first things first, what I need to find is water. How can I find my water project? I mean, how can I find that project to get water to be able to grow the crops that I wanted? So I then pegged my borehole, so I knew where my borehole was. Started doing my irrigation infrastructure. So basically I started with a hectare of tomatoes on that particular farm. All open field. We used to go with water carts with a tractor, and we used to irrigate with the water carts, 2 guys at the back of it, irrigating, putting water, until you actually ended up harvesting. For my first crop on that one hectare, we managed to get at least, at the time I think prices were 60, 70 cents per kilo. I ended up coming out with about 80 grand, which was quite substantial from that 1 hectare that I started off. But it was a proper grind when we were actually doing it. There were times where we didn't have tires to be able to say, okay, I'm going to put the tire. The old man was telling me, you can't take my stuff, and all sorts of stuff. But we ground it out, we worked hard, and we managed to get that reward. The key point is, whatever project that you do, you have to have a market. Once you have a market, you work on your budget, then this is my budget. If you've got a small amount, then you have to do whatever you have to do in order to get to the result that you want. So it doesn't mean you have to start as big in order to make a lot of money. Small steps done properly will get you the results that you're looking for.
Thanks, Kuda. 80 grand from just 1 hectare of tomatoes, but you had access to a 20-hectare farm. So how big is 1 hectare in terms of, say, football fields, or in terms of, we look in this room, how many hectares is there, so that at least we get an idea to say, you know what, I think with this side of, this piece of land, I can have a potential to have maybe 80 grand Because that's a substantial amount in terms of revenue generating from something that you're just starting with.
Roughly the size of a hectare is about 100 meters. So you measure 100 meters going that way, and then 100 meters going the other way. Then you make a square. That's what a hectare is. So in this room, this is less than a hectare. I think it will be even less than half a hectare.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So you can start at half a hectare and get 40 grand, for example, and still make some money from the investment you do put in. And things like tomatoes, for example, it's not a big capital outlay for you to actually produce something that's required in the nation.
All right, so you got 80 grand from 1 hectare. I'm just trying to do the math here and just try to see the opportunity that lies. Averagely, how much did you invest, or what is required in terms of an estimated financial investment that is required to, have, crop for 1 hectare, which has got a potential to give you like 80 grand?
Well, if I was a young guy who's starting out, first things first is I'll try to find my seed as cheaply as possible. Number two, obviously I know fertilizer-wise maybe it might be expensive to get at that period of time. I might look at things like manure, going to get manure and using that as my nitrogen base. But the key point is, obviously, you need to start by getting your soil analyzed. Once your soil is analyzed, you now know what's in your soil for you to add on. And then it's a matter, it's a start, if I want to put it that way. It's a start. So step by step, you do your steps properly, measure out your land, make sure you know exactly where you're going to put it. If you're going to work your land, work it properly. Put in whatever is required into that particular piece of land. So as I was saying, manure, you can use manure to grow it. Your seed, some guys are actually, I've seen guys in the small scalers who start by, okay, they'll see a tomato. I'm not recommending it, but you can get your tomato, you can get your seed, get the seed from that particular tomato, wherever you got it from, seed that. You can see that probably in trays or something like that. Very cheap. Grow out that particular tomato with the fertilizers. Get a few chemicals. Some chemicals that are there are cheap, or you can go the organic route, whichever way that gets you the result that you want at the end. Okay. Yeah.
So you started small with 1 hectare, started doing crop tomato, but now how big have you grown now in terms of the hectares that you do? Or maybe to put it into perspective for us, just give us your projected revenue for the kind of operation you now have.
Right. Okay. For tobacco, I do 110. Potentially, when I'm doing the math, because most of the time I bring up my calculator. Before I do any project that I do, I always look at the math. So I bring up my calculator, calculate. This is potentially what I can get. If I'm looking at tobacco, let's say from 110 hectares, 4 tons per hectare. So I'm looking at 440 tons of tobacco. If I get an average price of $3.50 to be conservative, that, I don't know what maths that is, but that's a substantial amount of money that comes back. Obviously, your input costs are then, would taken off from that. But yeah, you can safely say, from that you can easily come out with $500,000 worth that you put in your back pocket. So it's it's not a small amount.
It really has to be a very big back pocket, eh?
Yeah, no,
to shoulder $500,000.
Yeah, it's the guys also that some of my friends also that mainly do tobacco that have grown much bigger than the figures that I'm talking. I mainly specialize on a number of things that are integrated on the farm, but the potential. Sorry, I just want to add on, even like on the maize for this season. It was a no-brainer for me with the price of maize, $390, for me to push up to 250 hectares. Even though I couldn't irrigate it, I said the risk is better for me to do a high sort of hectarage in order to get the profit that I'm getting now we actually had a competition yesterday where the Seedco guys came out, and the portion that we're actually harvesting, I think it's a 50-hectare block, but it's averaging around 18, 19 tons per hectare, which means that in that particular hectare, if you get 19 tons, multiply 19 tons by $390, and then times the 50 hectares that you've done, and that tells you what sort of sums you're looking at. You then obviously remove your costs, but the amount that you get back, believe me, there are not very many businesses that can say they're getting that sort of capital outlay. I mean, sort of return.
Okay, so 250 hectares. So you're doing 110 tobacco. So I just want to put it into perspective for our listeners here. Okay, so guys, help us with the calculations out there, hey? So shortly, I'm just gonna, I just want to show people the kind of opportunity that exists in this industry, which sometimes as young people we tend to ignore. So if you are doing 110 in terms of tobacco, and you can put $500,000 in your back pocket, then you're doing 250 hectares of maize. Potentially that brings us to what? Just generally, it's much more than you're getting from the tobacco, right?
Yeah, with regards to the capital, that's it. Tobacco is less stress.
Mm-hmm. Come back to the numbers.
Okay, let me come back to the number. It is. I mean,
so, $500,000 in tobacco. How much are we looking at towards maize?
Because look, if I deliver 250 tons times 390, I don't know what your maths is like. My debt at the moment because I did it via command, my debt at the moment is sitting about 220 grand on the maize. So you can remove 220 grand, and then whatever you calculated from 2,500 tons times 390. That tells you what stays in the back pocket.
And you're not only doing tobacco, so you've got $500,000 in your back pocket from tobacco. We are probably looking at another $500,000 or more from your maize. You're also doing pigs. You're also doing cattle. You're also doing a lot of other stuff. Yeah. So, guys, the opportunity, I think this guy is putting in his back pocket $1 million in a year. That's the opportunity is real, and it's just focusing on one particular space. So I think the opportunity, everybody sees it here and understands it. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. We just have a couple of questions. Anyone who's got some questions for Kuda, you can raise up your hand, and we probably have a roving mic that will come in. So I will start with the gentleman over there. Do we have a roving mic? All right, then thereafter we'll come back to you, sir. Then we'll come here, the lady, and maybe these two gentlemen as the last ones. Please make it short.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. My name is William Timene. I'm someone who's so much interested in agriculture. So definitely not only the monetary, no. I just have a passion for agriculture. Just wanted to ask, sir, do you I heard what you said, that what you started with. But for someone who is more like based his life in an urban setting, how best can I go out? Do I have to sacrifice a year where I can have to go out and start, or I have to find a piece of land somewhere close to town where I can start? Number two, do you on your own, in your individual capacity, have a plan to nurture other young farmers that you would like to impart your skills onto? Let's say out of the hectares that you have, at least 1 hectare, which you will then mentor someone on these things that you are practicing already. Because I believe it's all about securing the future for everyone. Then right. Number three, I would just like the facilitators, if possible. Some of these guys, they do present and they leave before we interact with them. If they are willing, they can leave their numbers before they leave the stage. Thank you.
All right. All right, so I will, we will liaise with the organizers of the conference that maybe contact and more interaction can be done with Kuda after he's done the stage. But to summarize what the question is, how does one get into farming? Number two, proximity, to where you need to do your farming activities. What are your comments on that quickly?
First things first, for anyone who's doing farming, is you have to be decisive. Make a decision and commit to it. So if you're going to get into farming, if I was you and I was a young person, ideally what I would want to do is get involved with associations. I mean, get involved in CFU, ZFU, there's a Confederation Young Farmers Club, there's all sorts of associations that you can get involved with that will help you to get to where you need to be. If you've got a bit of money that you can start off with, ideally you can start off by leasing a farm, leasing a small hectarage, as I said, the hectare, the half hectare, whatever the case may be. It will help you grow. You start small, you learn from that period of time where you can make the mistakes and all sorts, but ideally that's why we're here, so that we can help you avoid making serious mistakes and put money in your back pocket. So with regards to nurturing, I would like to just let you know that we take on students every single year from all the various colleges. You take on more than what we normally can handle, because yeah, I'm one of those people that wants to teach as much as possible. I will not shy away from giving you the information that you require to get to where you need to be. So yeah, I'm more than happy. If you see me not replying, picking up my phone, I'll be in the field, but you can send me a text message and I'll be happy to help out. And with the associations, I'm actually involved in the Confederation Young Farmers Club. We actually go around. So what we do is, if we can, and everyone is around, we go around to each person's farm or each person's project and we critique each other. It can be brutal, but it's worth it. Believe me. I had a guy who came to my farm, one of my friends came, and my farm workers were looking at me, they were like, Basa, he's getting shouted at. He's used to shouting at us, and they're busy giggling in the background. So, that's how brutal it is, believe me.
All right, Kuda. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, please allow me, by the power vested in me, to conclude this discussion. We unfortunately have run out of time, but what I can promise you is Kuda is available. What he is saying in summary is you can get into farming if you would like to put $500,000 in your back pocket at some point. The opportunity definitely exists. So start with joining associations which help you in terms of networking, capacity, as well as advice. Kuda is also available. You can reach out to the organizers of the conference, and you can also then reach out to him via social media. You can find him on LinkedIn. You can find him on Facebook. And maybe let's get going. The idea of this conference, Kuda, is to create sustainable initiatives for Africa. So maybe your parting comments to our audience.
I think what I just want to say to the young people is, I'll tell you a quick story. When I was 18, I actually applied for a piece of land. I sat there hour after hour pushing to get what I wanted. I applied for a piece of land. Fine, I traveled and I went and it got given to someone else. But that's the tenacity that I had at that early age. And that's what I want to impart to you. And hopefully you can get inspired yourself. At the age that you're at, you can achieve what you want as long as you've decided that this is what I want to do. And you go for it as much as possible. Drive hard. Don't give up. You'll get knocks here and there. There are difficulties, as you know. But you can do it as long as you believe. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Shall we give him another round of applause? I think that was an excellent conversation. My sister and I back there, we were also sitting, just asking some questions and, trying to paint a picture. And we were saying, so how much capital did it take him to start? And how long did it take him to get to the 500 million or $500,000 back pocket? Just to paint a picture, And obviously, one big question is how did he secure the land so that we can also follow in his footsteps? In case anybody dropped or you can't find your inhaler, I've got an inhaler here. It's on 188 pumps. Please come and see me after this. I'm seated on your right, my left.
row. You can come and pick up your inhaler right there. Just to pick up on some nuggets from that discussion, I think it was a very interesting one. I could hear some whispers in the crowds from the young people doing some math, some calculators coming on our screens, just to paint a picture with the numbers. And there are different areas that support agriculture, I think, from what we've heard, that, it's beyond the hoe and the soil or the picture that you have. There are different areas that support agriculture. For an example, agri-finance. So if you're a finance person and you're thinking, okay, I'm a finance person, but how does agriculture apply to what I do? There's agri-finance. There's research. You've heard about soil testing. So you want to test the pH of the soil. Is it good for tobacco? Is it good for whatever crop you may want to get into? You've heard about animal husbandry, crop husbandry, you name it. These are some of the terms that I also came up with. Marketing, horticulture, export and import. At some point, Zimbabwe was the breadbasket of Africa. Why? Because there was export, and I'm sure we're going to get back there one of these years. And internship, thank you so much for bringing that up, because I'm sure some young people here would want to know, okay, so I want to know in depth what it takes to be a farmer. So there is an opportunity for you. It depends on how you position yourself. If you see this as an opportunity to understand deeper and better, then you can connect yourself. And if you look at the franchise business, actually, it's about food, right? And that's one growing industry. Franchises depend heavily on farming. So it's one area that you can also kind of look at. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to delve deeper into a discussion that's going to help us understand more about sustainable agriculture. And we've got a panel that's going to give us all these nuggets and all these points. And I'll just call upon our panelists to come and take their seats and get ready. So get ready, put on your seat belt, get your pens ready, because this surely you don't want to miss. I'll call upon Dr. Tobias Takavarasha. Let's give him a hand as he comes on stage. I'll also call upon Mr. Clive Nyapokoto. Mr. Shepherd Chihoro. And Mr. Paul Zakaria. Yes, let's give them a hand. You can do better than that. And I'm not going to be painting the picture with the numbers here, but there's definitely a young lady, open-minded young lady, who's going to drive this interesting conversation, and she's going to help unpack this particular session. And this young lady is none other than our very own Ruvimbo Nyangoni. Let's give a hand as she comes on. So Ruvimbo, you're going to drive the conversation.
Yes, thanks, Tej. So good afternoon, everyone. How are we all feeling today? Good? Excited about agriculture? $500,000? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So yesterday, to some of you who were here, we heard from Clayton Chaparda, who really inspired us as well. He talked about his post-harvest project, which essentially he was bringing to light some of the challenges that our farmers are facing in Zimbabwe. He brought to light that at Mbare Musika alone, we lose around 400 tons of produce a month because we're not knowing how to preserve our products appropriately. He also mentioned that this problem affects nearly 3 million out of the 7 million farmers that we have in Zimbabwe today. So what the people I have on the stage today are going to unpack those issues. They're going to paint a broader picture. And as much as we've heard a very exciting insights from Kuda, who I'm also really thrilled by, we're going to hear more. And I want you to really be engaged, because on the panel we have Dr. Takavarasha, who really has broad experience in policy. Dr. Takavarasha is currently the interim CEO and head of mission for the Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resources Policy Analysis Network. He's based in Pretoria in South Africa, and he is also a former permanent secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture in Zimbabwe. He's worked extensively across Africa, so lots of broad insights and wisdom to be hearing from this man. We also have Mr. Clive Nyapokoto, who is a very dynamic entrepreneur. The work he's doing is phenomenal. He's got an integrated organic farming system that we're going to hear more about. We also have Mr. Paul Zakaria, who is with the Zimbabwe Farmers Union. Kuda mentioned that it's important to be part of unions, especially when you're looking to get started. So Mr. Zakaria is going to teach us about the work that the Zimbabwe Farmers Union does, and they're an independent membership body for supporting farmers across Zimbabwe. And last but not least, we have Mr. Shepherd Chihoro, whom we heard from the co-founder today, Mrs. Farai Mpofu, who shared about the work that they're doing. Vrel Microfinance currently assists 3,000 smallholder farmers across Zimbabwe with financing, so we get to understand, again, from the financing perspective. So we're going to get settled now and start into the conversation. So, if I may, I will start with the wisest of the panel, Dr. Takarasha. He prefers to be called Dr. Tax, by the way. So, for those of you who want to be networking with him, please, I insist, call him Dr. Tax. What I'm keen to know is that a lot of the times when we look at Zimbabwe, we really think that maybe our challenges are unique to ourselves, and maybe we feel like, oh, Zimbabwe has just gone through maybe a drought period. There's a lot of young people not interested in farming. We have all these challenges that are preventing our young people going into farming. Is this unique to Zimbabwe alone? Can you just paint the landscape of the challenges that you've seen across your years of experience across Africa in general?
Thank you. I consider this a tremendous opportunity. In case you forget who we are from agriculture, just remember the lunch you had is from agriculture. If you're wearing a leather shoe, it's from agriculture. Maybe a cow died to produce the shoe. And if you are standing on a carpet, probably from fiber, from agriculture. The list is endless. Now, getting to the issue of the youth in agriculture, this could not have come at a better time. It's not a problem confined to Zimbabwe. It's a global and specifically an African issue. I will focus on Africa, why we need to get the youth into agriculture to make it sustainable. First and foremost is the demographics of Africa. 200 million people out of the 1.1 billion people in Africa, roughly around 23%, are considered to be youth between the ages of 15 to 35. And that statistic is going to be with us for some time. While we are going through that statistic, farmers whom we know as farmers are aging and will not be continuing, could be retiring. In addition to that, the scientists, researchers, extensionists who support the farming industry are also aging. So we are considering it a potential crisis unless we get the youth excited about agriculture. And when we talk about agriculture, thanks to Mr. Kudenga who was here, we have to distinguish the farmer and the agriculturalist. The farmer is at the center, at the core of agriculture. That value chain area is the one that has been most shunned because it has been associated with the drudgery of getting dirty, holding a hoe, and planting a seed. But we are saying farming is a business. Farming is the most dynamic type of entrepreneurship because the farmer as a business has to deal with the science of the crop, has to deal with the financial package, has to deal with the environment, has to deal with the entire business chain. In addition to that, agriculture has the highest level of risk. So an entrepreneur who is a farmer is also a risk manager. Farmer has to be driven not just by passion and the 500 million you had, but there is more to it than just the passion and the money. It's a science in its own, and it's a business, and it's the life. A lot of attention is being given globally, including in the Sustainable Development Goals. 13 out of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals speak to agriculture, the environment, and energy. So when you talk of farming and agriculture embraces the farmer, but the support structure that is around the farmer. So that support structure also needs a lot of expertise in terms of plant breeders, animal scientists, researchers, biotechnologists. The list is endless. Outside agriculture itself, agriculture cannot function without transport and without ICT. So I would come back later with some of the solutions that we are looking at, but by and large, we are saying farming to succeed needs young people. It is not a problem confined to Zimbabwe, but across Africa, there are many programs being put across to attract youth into agriculture, to retain young people into agriculture, and in farming as a business, but also, if we're talking of climate-smart agriculture due to the current problems of climate change, we need a lot of ICT into agriculture. So there's a lot of what youth can do beyond just the farm.
Yeah, that's really encouraging because I think, to your point, a lot of young people see farming or as agriculture. And I'm also just curious to understand whether that challenge you feel is something that can be solved immediately, maybe through mentorship, or is it something that will take a cultural shift to transform that thinking?
Why we are here, we believe we are the solution, and the solution is needed. First and foremost, solution should come in addressing the policy. Agriculture is very sensitive to the policies that the governments put across in terms of what to grow, when to grow, how to source their inputs, how to source their finances. Agriculture is also very sensitive to the institutions. How strong are the institutions, including farming organizations, farming unions, agri-techs, research and extension that support agriculture? The solution should also be looking at the financial space. Agriculture needs a lot of finance to support it. In the area of capacity building, we are looking even going as far as transforming the school curriculum, both at primary right through to college level, to give focus on practical farming as well as technical knowledge of farming in agricultural colleges. We are looking a lot of mentorship. There's a lot that can be gained through mentorship, learning from those who have gone through and walked through the road. Internships where you can attach students to a successful farmer like Kudakwashe Kudenga for a period of time. All that goes towards capacity building and capacity development to support the farming, to make it attractive as a business in addition to just the passion. Because you can't just eat passion, you need also to make a life out of agriculture and farming.
And it's good because we also have students here who we can test and find out if they're actually getting their hands dirty in school. And then to you, Mr. Nyapokoto, to you, Clive, tell us a bit more about your innovation, your integrated organic system. I think from what Dr. Tax was saying is that there's a lot of ICT innovation that they're trying to use to entice young people. So can you just give us a snapshot of what it is that you're doing, how you're applying technology to transform farming?
Thank you. What we did as Shift Organic Technologies, we developed an integrated organic farming system after discovering that organic farming was seen as a traditional way of farming, which was labor intensive. And it was really hard for people to get involved into organic farming. And even if you go to the regulatory bodies that certify organic farmers, they say you need almost 3 years to be satisfied for your land to be said it's now good for organic farming. But still, there is still contamination within that same system of farming when you are doing the ordinary organic farming way. So we thought, what is it that we could come up with that could revolutionize or change the system of organic farming that is done by most people? That's when we came up with what we call the VA system. VA system standing for vermi-aquaponics. It's an integration of vermiculture, aquaponics, small livestock, and ICT technologies.
Can you simplify for us?
All right. When you are saying vermiculture, it is the use of worms to decompose any biodegradable material. We are saying vermicompost can be a waste management technology that can be used to decompose or to make organic fertilizers using our household waste, office waste, kitchen waste, or garden organic biodegradables. Aquaponics is an integration of aquaculture and hydroponics. Aquaculture, which is fish farming in simple terms. Hydroponics is the growing of crops in a soilless environment but using artificial fertilizers. We have removed the element of artificial fertilizers by using fish waste to grow crops in those artificial grow beds.
So we're going to test you. Are you guys listening? We essentially are taking worms and the waste?
The waste.
The waste from worms is what is used. So you use the worms to feed the fish.
Yeah, we use the worms. It's a self-sustainable system. We use the worms to feed the fish, as well as we use them to feed the small livestock like chicken.
Okay.
As from the worms, we also get a liquid fertilizer, which we call vermi-tea, which you use as a supplement fertilizer for our crops.
So what kind of crops are you producing?
Currently, we have tried on all horticultural crops. We currently have a pawpaw tree growing in one of our grow beds in Mbare.
Nice.
And it's doing well.
Good.
Lettuces, herbs, and a variety of other horticultural crops which you can think of.
So the worm is doing all this?
It's an integrated organic farming system. You can say one element is doing the...
I was pulling your leg.
All right, so carrying on, we are taking fish water rich in ammonia from the fish pond, pumping into our artificial grow beds, which can either be filled with media, which are like quarry stones, those which you use for building or construction. Then we've got PVC pipes, which are just normal or ordinary PVC white pipes, 110 millimeter, or just the K-light or the rafts, which we use to float the crops on top of water. So the water comes from the fish pond, goes to the crops take out the excess ammonia for their growth, and the water returns back to the fish pond purified and clean. Instead of wasting water or flushing it away, like what commercial fish farmers do, we are just recycling our water.
Wow.
And hence we are only using 10% of the actual water that could be used in soil-based farming.
And how much space do you use for all of that?
What I can say is, with vermi-aquaponic system, you grow 4 times more than an ordinary farmer is growing on a hectare. The hectare, I think you were given the specifications for a hectare. So if one is using hectare and I'm using hectare for vermi-aquaponics, I'm growing 4 times as much. So I'm growing almost 5 hectares more quantity than he's growing on a hectare. For those who say we don't want, farming is a dirty job and you always have to wash your hands or whatever after doing your garden, or your nails. Yeah. With our system, you can do your gardening with your nails done. I'm actually coming from Mbare right now. I was doing my routine maintenance on one of our gardens, and this is my work suit.
Oh, wow. I'm not sure if Mr. Kudenga is still in the room, but I think I'm more sold on this model than, the other one.
With this system now, the ICT part comes with using sensor technology. It was difficult for me, or it was hard for me to experience a very harsh rural background where I was told every morning, Clive, wake up before you go to school, go to the field, make sure you help us with 1, 2, 3 before you involved in farming.
Yeah.
So I'm studying towards my software engineering. I thought, how could I integrate the two, software engineering and farming? I developed an application to assist me in monitoring and maintaining the VA system. As I'm seated here, I can just go to my mobile device or any other internet-enabled device and be able to WhatsApp, tweet, or go on Facebook and talk to my garden. Feed fish, stop water pump, tell me the water pH, water temperature, water level. And all this, it's like just like I'm chatting with someone, or at least I'm talking to my garden.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I think I can also see a very big smile on Dr. Tax's face. This is exactly what you guys were trying to do.
That's right, because we are saying Zimbabwe, apart from being the potential breadbasket for Africa, we are calling it the potential innovation hub for the transformation of African agriculture.
Wow.
That's prophetic.
Yeah. Amen. Thank you. Now, moving across the Zeta view, tell us, what are some of the initiatives that you're doing to encourage young people to become involved in farming, in agriculture?
Well, thank you very much. Some of the problems that our elderly farmers were experiencing, and we picked up Zishawane in Midlands, and then we put together a team, and we went out. So as we set out there, we actually wanted to have quite a number of meetings.
Yes.
So it was about 6 or so. Each meeting that we called out for was attended by elderly people. You know, we just said, farmers, can we meet with farmers? And we didn't specify elderly farmers. So obviously, farmers came, and these were quite advanced in age.
And
so
where were the young people?
We saw maybe 1 or 2 here and there, but they did not come there to speak like farmers. So those who were farmers were the 65, 70 upwards. And that got me worried, because at that point I realized, no. The research here is pointing us to something else, which is not what we intended right from the beginning. So we started interrogating the real issue. Why is it that we have the elderly people classified as farmers? Where are the youths? What is the succession plan on the farm like? So we started interrogating those things while we were fulfilling the terms of reference for the Helpage International.
What did you find most surprising from your results?
Well, the big issue was the supplier of food was the elderly person. It was a huge surprise that the whole nation is actually supplied, food for the whole nation is supplied by these smallholder farmers who are so advanced in age.
So it means that there's huge barriers for young people to get involved in farming due to the lack of access to resources and assets.
So it actually opened our eyes to that kind of a thing. And we started saying amongst ourselves within the organization, what should then be our plan?
What is your plan?
The plan is to, from that very time, 2011 going into 2012 up till now, is to then look at agriculture in a totally different way. Many people that would be sitting in here, particularly, above 30 and so on, would remember ZFU. By the way, ZFU is 76 years old now.
Wow.
So they would remember ZFU as an organization that draws membership from the elderly, people. And any ZFU meeting would be elderly people coming together. But now, the whole face has changed. And this was informed by that research that we call Agri-Talks. These Agri-Talks are platforms where we bring stakeholders in the agricultural industry. Could be finance, input suppliers, markets, and researchers, academia. They just talk the way we're doing things here, this could be a big agri-talk. So they are talking about what they are doing, what opportunities exist in agriculture, what opportunities exist in agriculture. We are talking not only about primary production. We're also talking about how the young people can plug in to the value chain opportunities, the agribusiness that is related to agriculture, opportunities in terms of providing services. Yeah, some can actually come in to provide agronomic backup. Yeah, some can do packaging, some can do transport, others can do, market information. Most of these things, they actually do create employment for the young people, and it's not backbreaking. It's not backbreaking. It is not. There is no drudgery in that, and then also profiling some of the successes that we are seeing in agriculture. You'll go onto YouTube, you'll see quite a number of these initiatives that are being profiled there. Success stories. This story that we have here from Shift Organic is one story that tells you that agriculture should not be viewed as this labor-intensive thing, one thing that you cannot enjoy.
Yeah.
You can actually enjoy agriculture and still make a lot of money. I mean, 4 times as much as the conventional methods. That is quite interesting.
Absolutely. Are the talks open to us as we are doing now, or is it more for the existing farmers? Can a new farmer, a novice, show up and expect to learn about farming?
We open this up to young people. In Zimbabwe, you can be young even if you...
Oh, that
but
kind of
anyway,
young.
between the 15 and 35. So that's the target group. But we do not restrict it. We are not hard and fast about that. Anyone who is interested, but the young person is anything up to 35. And we also hold what we call agripreneurship summits every year. And these are big talks now where we are interrogating specific issues per year going into the sphere of agriculture. But before I forget this, we really need, as Zimbabweans, maybe even the whole of Africa, probably the third worlders, we need to spruce up the image of agriculture. Because to an ordinary young person, when they hear agriculture, the pictures that fly in their mind are what he is running away from when he would get to school late, tired, sleeping in the classroom. That is not the agriculture of 2017 and going forward. So we need to really clean that image so that agriculture sells properly. We start from the markets. There are opportunities to export peas, for instance. And we have young farmers in Marondera that are now exporting peas to France, to Spain. They are exporting, peas to Holland. Yeah. So when you start from where the money is, then your passion begins to follow through that the whole process. But also there is then the discipline. You need to be educated about what you are doing, and you need more information. So seeking information, drawing a lot of, and networking, being connected and remaining in that sphere where information is flying is actually critical.
That's very good. So we'll touch on that in the next round. But before we do, just wanted to hear from the money person, from the financiers. Is it true that you can make a ton is it bad to want to make money from agriculture?
Thank you, Rimbo. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Rimbo, for this opportunity. And it's been amazing conversations to be hearing what everyone is saying about farming. Because as an organization, we have decided to actually be active in this sector. Because if you look at Zimbabwe and where we were some 30 years ago, we are known as the breadbasket of Africa. And then you look at where we are now. And if you talk about potential for growth, I don't know if agriculture cannot define it any more than what it is right now. But however, because of where we are now in the 21st century, we are going tech, And I think the youth are the ones who hold this opportunity for agriculture to be married with technology. And when you look at it in that manner, you then look at it and say, there's great potential to make money. And that's why, as an organization, we've made it deliberate to say, you won't see very big banks going into the rural finance, into agri-finance. But we've made it deliberate as an organization to say, this is where we want to play, because we see the opportunity. And I want to encourage the youth of today to see the opportunity with us. This is where the money is. Agri as a business is where the future is.
So tell us a bit more about your customers. You have 3,000 customers. Tell us a bit more about what they're doing, the type of projects they're working on, just to make it practical to the young people who are especially looking to start.
Great. 3,000 is actually just the rural farmers that I'm talking about in terms of finance. Our total customers are actually up to 6,000. We've got branches in Hauna, Mtasa. We've got another branch in Rusape. We've got a branch in Makoni. We've got a branch as far as Gwanda. Just looking at even Goromonzi as well, just closer to home. So I'll bring you a practical lesson where I've seen someone who has just lost their job. I think you read about the 3 months notice. I know youth that have lost their job and have had to leave Harare and relocate to Goromonzi. And the little money that they had, I remember talking to this young man who had $600 that I was giving to him as notice of termination. And that's all he had to start as a business. If you talk about a hectare, that's too big. It's actually half an acre. Not talking about a hectare. So half an acre is probably maybe 200 by 200, if I'm correct. And it's much smaller than this, probably just this row. That's what he started in terms of farming. So what he did was to sustain the business.
$600?
Yeah, $600. That was the initial capital that young man had. So what he had within the 200 by 200 sort of space that he had, he started doing different crops. So he had his carrots, he had his cabbages, he had his cover, and he had his potatoes within a very small space. And what he did was to time them differently. So he timed them in such a way that every week he's going to harvest. So after every week, he's actually getting some cash flows, which is why we do want to do farming as youngsters, because we feel that it takes forever to actually get money in the back pocket, isn't it? Talked about tobacco, it's a year literally for you to get 500,000 in your back pocket. But in this case, the guy was able to practically look at it and say, every month I need to make sure I've got, every week, I actually need to make sure I've got something that I get as cash, be able to buy my bread and be able to buy my fruit and veg for the house and my beef that I need to cook for my family.
That's a really good point, to make sure that you have a system, a structure in place that ensures that at any point in time you have cash flows coming in because of how you structure your crops.
Exactly. So now you're looking at it as a business. You're not looking at it as a hobby, as a passion. You're now looking at it as a business, because what we're talking about is actually being able to generate cash flows. And even then, when I come as a financier, I'm able to look at you as a business and not as a farmer. I'm actually looking at you and talking to you about what's your weekly cash flow. What is your profitable position, so I can be able to finance you to then move from this 200 by 200 to a 400 by 400 until you get to the big size such as what Kudakudenga is now.
And what about the other things that matter? Security, collateral, these are things that young people feel they don't have that limit their access to finance. Can you talk a bit about that as well?
Certainly, these are one of the things that I believe it's a myth, because we recently, I think ZFU will actually confirm, we're working with them in a program that was called Zimbabwe Works, which was actually specifically meant for the youth between 20 and 35 years. And we know, we've actually developed a product that specifically speaks to youth, because we know that one of the biggest challenges you have is your collateral, it's your security. So we always come in with methods of finding a way around it. As long as we understand your business has got the ability to generate cash flows, that's what we look at, that's what we focus on. And then the security becomes a fallback position, but the main focus is cash flow based.
Wow, that's amazing. So back to you, Dr. Tax. Can you just tell us more about, when we hear about agriculture in other countries, it seems quite phenomenal. A country like the Netherlands, with a population of, say, 17 million people, exports $10 billion worth of vegetables, whereas the country in Zimbabwe does far much less. We hear about Nigeria managing to transform their cassava into a product that is quite wholesome and nutritious. They had their cassava green revolution. We know about the China rice revolution. So what is it why is Zimbabwe, I guess, at a place where we are not as excited about it, or what it is that should we be looking forward to in terms of Zimbabwe's own green revolution?
That's a very good question, Rovimbo. What will transform agriculture and sustain agriculture in Africa is the ability to market what we produce. it's very easy to turn around the primary production process. Give fertilizer, give seed, there is water, there is land. You can produce almost as much as you want given those good conditions of rainfall. But that does not end the story of the agricultural value chain. The bigger challenge is firstly being able to keep the cost of producing those quantities as low as possible. The cost of marketing them, the technology that you need to make the production process as efficient as possible, like Netherlands, and the volumes that you need to benefit from economies of scale, like the cassava in Nigeria that we have quoted, and the ability to invest as much as possible in high-yielding varieties in technology, like the Asian rice, Green Revolution examples.
Yes.
So what we are focusing on now, if we are going to turn around the comparative advantage of Zimbabwe, is to export that comparative advantage by ensuring that we focus on high-value crops.
Such as?
Horticulture.
Horticulture.
Tobacco,
Did you hear that?
Cotton.
Cotton.
But
Did you say cotton?
those high-value crops to be effective depends on very much how you attract the buyer who can buy them. They need quality, they need assurance of produce, they need the efficiency in terms of what you are producing, they need food safety standards to be adhered to. But the bottom line of what I'm saying is transformation of agriculture will not happen without market access.
Absolutely.
Domestic market, external market, and the volumes, because agriculture thrives more on volumes. It's basically more of bulky products. So you need to be very much focused on your ability to sell what you market, or what you produce, to market what you produce. You had the example yesterday of tomatoes.
Yes.
E-cooling. You need e-marketers as much as possible to get volumes and to get our comparative advantage exported.
Absolutely. And I like how you touched on the global standards as well, like the whole certification. It's going to be really important that we are adhering and seeing ourselves as a global player in the marketplace. And to you, Clive, you use a lot of technology, sensors, etc. How do you source those? How easy is it for you to obtain that technology?
Thank you for that question. What I can say, currently it's not easy to get those sensors, and especially with the regulations in Zimbabwe, some of them, they actually get confiscated by the regulatory authorities. So it has been really difficult to source those, although we have managed to source a few which we have used for our innovations. We are sourcing them from Asia, I can say, and we have managed to develop a few innovations using them, and we have not had any problems. In addition to the VA system, we managed to use the same sensors for a beehive, which we call the smart mkoko, or the talking beehive. Instead of you getting stung each time you want to check whether there is honey in your hive or how your hive is performing, this hive is able to tell you the amount of honey in kgs being produced through your WhatsApp or your Twitter.
Nice.
And it is also able to tell you if the hive has been colonized, among other things. So we are just hoping that in the near future we are able to really make our own sensors. For the rural folks, we have developed what we have copied the technology that is used by what we call the over-overs, because there is no access to internet in most rural areas. So for the beehive, we've used that same technology so that they don't need to be connected to internet to access those parameters that are happening within their beehives. So with some of our gadgets now, you don't need to be connected to the internet, but they have their own frequency which they can communicate to you within a specified radius.
And this is a really good opportunity for, again, agriculture, the value chain is diverse, so whether you're passionate about technology or different aspects of it, there's many ways for you to be involved. And then to the ZFU, what are the other initiatives besides the talks that, again, you're using to engage the young farmers?
We also as an organization, we actually have a structure for the young farmers. And through those structures, all the way from the villages, the ward levels, the districts, the provinces, and the national levels, they are able to meet at designated places. And these places, in fact, they then agree to meet, say, once every month or once in 2 months, so that they are checking on each other. And at that particular local level, they are called Young Farmers Clubs. So these are the Young Farmers Clubs that we have dotted throughout this country. And we have in excess of 12,000 Young Farmers Clubs in this whole country.
Wow.
And some of them are actually school-based, primary schools, secondary schools, which is actually connecting to what Dr. Tax said when he was talking about influencing the review process of the education curriculum in Zimbabwe. Now we're even talking about primary school children and secondary school pupils learning agriculture formally and it being an examinable subject.
What about informally? You mentioned about the, say, young farmers who are exporting. Do you use those as case studies at all, like in terms of mentorship? What else are you doing with the examples of those people that you have?
These are what you will find now on your YouTube or even on the ZFU website. You will find we have profiled success stories, quite a number of them, and they can actually speak for themselves on the things that they are doing and the successes that they have achieved. And we do that in order to then inspire other young people that you see there is future in agriculture. Zimbabwe is an agro-based economy. It beats the mind when people start looking elsewhere for livelihoods, leaving the most basic and immediate opportunity or opportunities that we have in agriculture. The only thing that we need to do, like I said earlier on, is bring the story that is sellable, that is acceptable to the young people. And the stories that we are profiling and sharing, not only on YouTube, we also have created, we have done, DVDs and so on, so that we throw them all over. Young people must be engaged and they must plug in. They must participate in the mainstream of this economy, and agriculture does that.
And I love how you've just made it easily accessible because different people access resources differently. So the fact that it's on multiple platforms is very valuable. And then my last question to the financier. So how is it that what is the process of literally coming to get access to financing from you?
Okay. One of the first things that you just need to do is actually get started. We won't finance you when you're thinking about farming or you hope to be in farming. We want you to actually get started. So we want if you're talking about the idea of farming, we want to then come to you and you actually show us the piece of land where you're doing something. So if you have started on your 200 by 200 meters, then that's the first step. Get in there, get actually your hands dirty, and then after you have been doing it maybe for a minimum of 6 months to 12 months, then you can call us and then you can be able to look at the options that we have for you. We have a very active website, Vale Microfinance. If you just Google it, you'll find Vale Microfinance. It's a website. You can also find us on Facebook, Vale Microfinance as well. You can also find us on Twitter at Vale Microfinance.
And what are your payment terms, interest terms? Just talk a bit more about that as well.
We've got different products. We are very sure that everyone, you don't have a one-size-fits-all. We've got different packages for different needs. So a package for someone who's doing tobacco is entirely different from someone who's doing carrots and cabbages. So it will be very difficult for me to run through all the products we have, but I would love to say that we have some that will be tailor-made for whatever it is that you need, and we'll be more than happy to engage.
I guess the last thing, so there's a culture against borrowing, right? Sometimes we're taught that borrowing is not the greatest of things. It's probably a bad thing. What would you say to that?
I think if you could have said it very well, I think you said one of the best things he said, I'll pay off my debt. If you are going to grow as a business, it doesn't matter which sector. One of the key things you have to do is to increase your capacity. And the only way you can do that is by getting finance. So the most important thing, however, is when you get finance, you have to know the responsibilities that come with getting finance. We actually then offer free training, especially for young people like you, If you go to Google Play, you can download an app called BizEdu, BIZEDU. You can download it for free. It offers free financial literacy training, just so that you can be able to be educated in terms of how you manage your cash flows, how you make sure that you're able to pay off your debt. So it's a misconception that is out there to say that it's not good to borrow. What's important is when you borrow, you have to know what it comes with in terms of rights and responsibilities.
That's brilliant. And I think the one thing responsibility, though you haven't mentioned explicitly, there's also the issue with recoverability. Always make sure that when you do have your loan, make sure to repay, because it always stays on your record. So you don't want that to tarnish your identity. So as a good business person or responsible person, always be responsible towards your obligations.
Very important, Rimbo, and I think that's a very critical point to say. As you, this is you just beginning to start your careers, at the beginning of your lives. So the only thing that you really have, the biggest asset that you have, is your name. So you don't want to tarnish it. If you fail to repay a loan, the first thing that we do is just blacklist you. So the moment you realize that farming is not working and you go out there and you try to get a job, you always get turned down, and then you wonder what it is. It's simply because you didn't pay back a loan, because we have blacklisted your name.
This is not to deter you. We'll take just 2 questions from the audience if we can, for time's sake. The first 2 hands that went up were that gentleman and over there. Unfortunately, we can only take 2.
Afternoon. How are you?
Afternoon.
My name is Luandlo Lubanzindebele. I'm the founder of a policy and innovation organization. I'm also a telecoms engineer. So one of the biggest challenges, I think, maybe with African agriculture is there's been a question or debate about Monsanto. These GMO organizations coming on with GMO seeds and coming to plant in Africa for greater yields. And my question to Dr. Tax, he said he wants to be called Dr. Tax, is how viable is it to actually come up with African innovations in GMO in GM seeds, and also how do we integrate that with the indigenous knowledge? We've actually done a paper on innovation in agriculture and also the use of ICTs. And we found that actually one of the barriers to actually implementing ICT and innovations in agriculture are, just like he pointed out, like how governments actually stifle or prevent that kind of innovation from coming through. My question is, in your experience as the permanent secretary in agriculture, how possible is it, or what's the government's stance? Is it softening up? Is it accessible to actually these new ideas? Because with climate change also being a challenge in Africa, you find that the yields are in potential danger. In India alone, they lose 40% of their produce because of lack of innovation. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And the next question, the final question?
Yeah, I'm Yashampani. I wanted to ask, since you're talking about sustainable agriculture in Africa, my question is to Dr. Takavarasha. You mentioned that agriculture is sensitive to policy. So I wanted to ask, how sustainable is command agriculture? And if it's sustainable, what role can we play as the youth in Zimbabwe?
Thank you. If I could start with the first question, which also touches on policy. Regarding the issue of GMOs, our advice, speaking from the point of view of Africa as a whole, is the need to strengthen their research and the biosafety regulations that would equip and enable countries to make informed decisions on the types of technologies that they can adopt or accept. So a lot of it will depend on the capacity and the policy decision-making processes of different countries. The stronger the research capacity and ability to test varieties, you find countries like South Africa will have been faster in accepting different varieties than the other countries who still feel that they are not ready, but still need more information on the scientific, ethical, social, and the implications of the varieties that are not conventionally produced. The issue of indigenous knowledge is very important. We believe there are many indigenous crops on the African continent that have not been fully exploited. You can name several that might be considered as wild crops, which we think a lot of knowledge, management knowledge and information still is needed to put those crops and commodities where they can be researched, where they can be regulated, where they can be processed. So I encourage that the use of indigenous knowledge is very important. Coming to the issue of policy, in terms of the programs that countries adopt, circumstances differ. Talking from where I stand, working with different African countries, there are different circumstances, challenges, and the issues that affect different countries. What we encourage are policy-making processes that will allow ministries of agriculture to benefit from researchers, from farmers, from private sector, from scientists, to make an input into the policy-making processes. So at the end of the day, whichever intervention that a government puts in place, it is determined and dictated by the circumstances of a particular country in terms of availability of funding and the need to accelerate production. So that is where you may find that countries have different programs of intervening. The end result is to achieve food security. The sustainability of different programs is depending on the information, the analysis that goes with different programs. So we definitely recommend, as a policy outfit in Africa, we normally support evidence, best practices from other countries, and leave it up to countries to determine what is in the best interest at a particular time for that particular country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Clearly, the conversation could have gone on and on. I think you've heard it for yourselves. Get involved in agriculture, be engaged. The panelists will still be available to you for a further discussion. But again, the stage is yours. Don't seize the moment, seize the opportunity, and get into agriculture. Thank you.
Very much, and let's give a hand to our panelists. I think they really exhausted that topic very, very well. And Rovimbo, thank you for driving that conversation. And you know, I had one question that I put here, but you know, I was answered before I could present it. Dr. Takawarasha really hammered the answer even beyond my expectations. So thank you so much, sir. Global sales of healthy food products are estimated to reach $1 trillion United States dollars by 2017, according to the Euro Monitor. So this is $1 trillion US dollars. Now you need to locate yourself and say, so what is my part to play in this $1 trillion US dollars? Are you going to have the 500 million in the back pocket? Food for thought. And the question around the GMO has been answered as well. And who would have thought that apps could come from a garden? I mean, I liked what Mr. Nyapokoto shared on leveraging on technology to execute And this reminds me of the story in the Bible when Adam was instructed to tend to the garden. He's really using technology. And the youth be part of the players to transform the mindsets regarding agriculture through your innovation. So you've heard about what Dr. Takavarasha highlighted with regards to e-marketing. We need people who can market the produce, right? So every skill here needs to come and support agriculture. And so the conversations continues. Plug into AgriTalks that Mr. Paul Zakaria mentioned. Look at this as an opportunity to explore value addition opportunities presented by the supply chain. So the list is endless. And I think our young people can definitely plug into these forums, into these opportunities for them to express their bright ideas. So what's going to happen next is we want to see how we can now begin to apply, how we can begin to engage going forward. And we've got 4 tracks that are going to be taking place shortly after this, and I'll give instructions on how that is going to happen. But before I go there, how many of us visited our website for Innovate, Elevate Youth Conference 2017? You can show by raise of hands. How many of us? That should be most of us, because I think the registration was online, right? How did you like the website? Yeah, I'm getting a thumbs up here. Yes, I'm getting another thumbs up there. Ladies, am I getting a high five? Yes, I like that. And the social media pages, how did you like those? Thumbs up again right here. Ladies over there. Okay, thumbs up, high five, queen waves. So there's a story behind those platforms. There's a certain somebody who is in this room, obviously working with a team, but there's a certain someone with a unique skill who's been working on those platforms. And today marks the birthday of that particular person. Would you like to meet the person? Let's start off by, his name is Tamuka Sanyika, and we're going to sing a happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Come on, let's go, join me. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. I think the crowd wanted dance, and the jingle is coming up. Right, so we'll give you 5 seconds to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? How's the conference going? Okay. I only have 5 seconds, so I'm going to make this really short. Thank you so much for being here today, seeing that it's my birthday. Yes, it's a funny thing, but then I think that nothing happens by chance. Yes, so all of you are here today on this particular day, which is my birthday. Obviously to be part of this conference, but then also at the same time to watch me give you my 5-second speech on this stage. I don't know how that's going to impact any of your lives, but I don't know, I'm just a believer. I'm a firm believer in the fact that, nothing happens for a reason. So yeah, I hope my little 5 seconds on this stage added something to your lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Birthday. This is your birthday song. Celebration all night long. May all your dreams come true. We sing all together. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday celebration. Party night, feel the vibration. Lights are bright, we're feeling alright. We're dancing till the morning light.
Thank you, Mr. DJ. Thank you so much. That was a track dedicated to Tamuka Sanyika. Thank you so much for the wonderful words full of swag. So what we're going to do right now, ladies and gentlemen, is we've got 4 tracks, like I mentioned earlier, that are taking place. Each track has got 2 sessions that will be running one after the other. So if you are in a track that you so love, you can just continue to sit in there and enjoy the second session that will be taking place. But each track has got 2 sessions going on, okay? So track 1 is going to be focusing on how to create community-based initiatives that have lasting impact. And the facilitator is Mr. Brian Kagoro, and that is going to be taking place in... Okay, you know, smart gadgets sometimes do their thing. Okay, so this is going to be taking place in the auditorium on my right. So as you walk out on your right, that is going to be the room. Track 2 is going to be happening in room 15. That is the hospitality lounge. And there we are going to be having innovation trends in global health. So as you walk out of the auditorium, on your left, you proceed straight. You'll see where you proceed on your left, you'll see a room that is labeled room 15, hospitality room. Track number 3 is in the Jubilee Hall. So as you walk out of the auditorium, just before the main exit on your left, that is the Jubilee room. We are going to be having how to make yourself more marketable in today's employment and business environment. And our facilitator there is going to be Sarah Tembeza. Then in the main auditorium where we are seated right now, we are going to have real leadership that effects real change. What it takes to be an effective leader on global stage. And the facilitator is going to be Natalie Jabangwe. Please allow me again, I think I didn't mention the facilitator for track 2. That is going to be Dr. Kennedy Mubaiwa. Okay, so please, let's kindly make our way to those tracks. Remember, there are 2 sessions taking place in each and every track. And if you would like to enjoy both sessions, remain in the room. Shortly after that, we are then going to, well, once the tracks are done, we are going to come back into the auditorium where we'll get an exciting Elevate talk from a gentleman who has come all the way from South Africa. So you wouldn't want to miss that. But as of now, let's go and enjoy the tracks. Thank you.